Thank you, Travis. I start as I always do. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. As we talk about my wife, I recently got married about 4 months and 3 days ago. Don't quote me as far as whether that's exactly the amount of time. No, I don't need your applause, I need your prayers. Because my wife, until recently, didn't know the brothers. Now you understand. And Thursday morning, which happened to be Founders Day, I'm in the shower and I had to get up early to go to work. And this is like maybe 4 a.m. And I'm in the shower, she's asleep, or was asleep, or thought she was asleep, and I'm in the shower saying, so hard to play Jamaica, so hard to play Jamaica, so hard to play Jamaica, sci-fi. I walk out of the bathroom, and she says, what are you saying at 4 in the morning? But if you know our history, the songs speak of the connectivity to our history. The songs that we sang on the plantations, the songs that we sang in the cotton fields, the songs that we sing today, they are still relevant today. And I always like to be honest. At the beginning of the month, I had these prepared remarks, and I thought they were going to be funny, they were going to be witty, and I would tell all these jokes and maybe throw in something about President Obama, and maybe you would laugh. And then I went to sleep. And I woke up, and Donald Trump became president. I just balled that up and threw it away. And as we've been talking about tonight, we touched upon it, is it's not funny anymore. It's very serious. So as we talk about today, this Omega men living the Founder's vision, let me just give you a few things and I'll get into my remarks. And I know that we are having a good time tonight, but I'm going to take it in just a little bit of a different direction because I think it's necessary given the severity of the moment. Vision, in the physical sense, is seeing not only where you are, but seeing what is in front of you, or even confronting you. Vision in the metaphorical sense is seeing beyond the moment in which you stand, beyond your immediate circumstances. Our founders, Dr. Ernest Everjust, Oscar James Cooper, Frank Coleman, Edgar Amos Love, not only had a vision for themselves, trying to create a fraternity for black men on a black college campus, imagine that, but also could envision what and who would confront them in the future. Today, I'm very concerned. I'm concerned that we in Omega, and I hope I don't step on anybody's toes, I'm afraid we've lost sight of the Founder's vision, what they envisioned, and how we've allowed those outside of our organization to engage in revisionist history about our greatness. The beauty of Omega Psi Phi and its creation on that cold night in Science Hall at Howard University, November 17th, 1911, is that our founders understood that we were all we needed. Omega is all we needed. But for whatever reasons, we stopped reminding other folks. We stopped telling our stories. We stopped reminding them of our greatness. Let me put it another way. When students today, especially African Americans, talk of safe spaces on our college campuses, places where they can go and feel accepted, I don't get it because Omega Psi Phi has been creating safe spaces since 1911. When our young people go out and say that Black Lives Matter, it confuses me because I know without a doubt that Omega Psi Phi made sure that Black Lives Matter since November 17, 1911. So how did we get to this point? How did we get here? Where is this disconnect coming from? Are we doing a poor job explaining our history? I'm talking about Omega's history. Or are we allowing these interlopers come in and redefine our history? Because back in 1911, our founders were abundantly clear on the dangers awaiting black men on college campuses. Back in 1911, the founders were absolutely clear that black lives did not matter anywhere except in our own communities. Back in 1911, the founders were in no way confused about the need for a safe space for black men in the military. A military which was fine with black men sharing their blood, but a military which was not fine with white men sharing their barracks. Why is it more of our young people don't know about how Black Lives Matter to like Brother Dr. Charles R. Drew? How is it our people don't know our glorious history inside and outside of Omega? My point is this: we need to stop. We have to stop. We must stop looking to others and to create other organizations to cure what ails us, what confronts us, what lies ahead of us. Omega Psi Phi was what the doctor ordered long ago. And no medicine does anybody any good if we don't take it. If folks don't know the good that we do in and out of our communities. Let me get to the founder's vision. And this is the good part. Friendship is essential to the soul. To call someone your friend is to interact with him or her with humility. Their success is our success. Their struggles are our struggles. Their family is our family. It is the essence of our connectivity as human beings. Friendship is essential to the soul. Not friendship is essential to graduating college. Not friendship is essential to getting a good job. Not friendship is essential to getting likes on Facebook, getting followers on Twitter. But friendship is essential to the soul. Our connections, like David and Jonathan, as detailed in the book of Samuel. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 1. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Then David and Jonathan, this is verse 3, made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. Now, what was that covenant? Friendship. Friendship is essential to the soul. The founders knew exactly what they were doing, and their vision for the future of African Americans and our beloved organization was absolutely clear. That's vision. So where did we go wrong? Did we go wrong? Maybe it's all about them, the outsiders that we've allowed to come in. Well, here's what I think is part of the problem. We don't look at each other as friends. We don't treat each other friendly. When I walk into a room like I walked in here tonight, and I see that I'm amongst friends, my response, your response is very different than out there in the world. We don't seem to extend our hands in friendship, but more like fists in animosity. But beyond the vision of the founders and their hopes for us, which would last longer than any of them would on this earth, beyond their vision was their acknowledgement that we as a people had a duty and a responsibility to know our history. This is what I want to digress for a moment. Be very careful who we allow to speak on our behalf. Let me say that again. Be very careful who we allow to speak on our behalf. Because when I'm watching TV and I see this news report of Kanye West, for example, speaking in front of 20,000 people in the midst of N-words and B-words, and then stopping to tell those same 20,000 people that not only did he not vote, he wants to offer social commentary, I have to wonder how and why did we empower someone like him to speak on our behalf? Why do we sit idly by? Why is it we keep asking people like Lil Wayne whether all lives matter or Black lives matter? This is in the same year in which our people, our sons, and even some of our daughters are dying in impunity on video. This is the same year in which Lil Wayne was most known for pouring champagne on his smartphone, oxymoron. And then we want to ask him, do Black lives matter? And then get mad when he gives the wrong answer, because we're asking the wrong questions of the wrong individuals. The founders were clear that we had an inherent responsibility to groom those who would speak on our behalf, like the Omega Youth Leadership Academy. Omega is all we need. We can no longer be content to just run down the list of famous Omega men and act like that is what our founders, Cooper Coleman, Love and Just, had envisioned as the realization of their vision. I feel like sometimes we've gotten so stingy, and that's the only word I can think of, stingy about the glorious legacy of Omega Psi Phi, that we've cheated ourselves out of the opportunity to publicize our good works. We've been robbing ourselves so much in telling our own story, we have to go on defense. We have to defend the name of Omega when one video appears on Facebook from one party on one occasion. And what happens? This is where we are our own worst enemies. Black folks, people who look like you and me, our friends, our family, they will tag us and they'll share that video. And then they'll comment on that video saying, look at those makers. We have to defend ourselves. And then white folks, they'll tag us. They'll share the video and they'll comment on it and say, look at those. Come on now. We need to be in control of our story. And that's how the founders intended it. You can't talk about Carter G. Woodson and Omega Psi Phi and not knowing how we need to control our story, know our history, and be able to tell it. Not just the story of Omega Psi Phi, but all of our history. Black people, we must do better. We must engage in more friendship. And I mean that because as a black man and an Omega, I'm an ambassador everywhere I go. Every person I meet, I know this and I'm conscious of this in no uncertain terms. Stereotypes about both Omegas, stereotypes about black people, they're either confirmed or debunked every time I step into the room. And every room in which I enter, Omega enters with me. So it is then incumbent upon me to make sure that I do not confirm any stereotypes. And when I do go on radio or TV, I try to wear my Omega Psi Phi pin as often as possible because I know it's going to inspire conversation. Oh, what is that? What's a fraternity? Oh, tell me about Omega Psi Phi. Thank you. I'm glad you asked. And then I can go into our history. And so when they see that one video from that one party posted on Facebook, there will be a wealth of information and knowledge for both black and white people where they are not then lulled into some false sense of understanding of who we are as a people and what this organization represents. It's not fair. We know that we're often judged by a singular event, a singular moment. There are a lot of folks who are going to listen to Kanye West and say, see, that's how they all think. There are a lot of folks who are protesting in the streets right now about Donald Trump who don't even understand the specifics of our own electoral college. There are a lot of folks who are mad right now and didn't even vote 2.5 weeks ago. We don't need a new vision. We don't need a new organization. We don't need any more revisionist history about the greatness of our fraternity, founded upon the 4 cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. It's no mistake that manhood is first. Because without manhood, the remaining cardinal principles cannot be achieved. We are the leaders that we have been waiting for, and the ambassadors that we, as African Americans, need. So after tonight, let's go forth, reclaim our greatness, and remind those we've never left. And I want to go back very quickly because as a student of history, there are a lot of things which happen that if you're not paying attention and to weave all this together, and if you don't know your history, it'll slide right by you. Let me take you back to 1909. Theodore Roosevelt was president. This is just 2 years before a great fraternity was founded. I want you to recognize the backdrop of how and why the fraternity was founded. What impressed upon our founders their eventual vision. I want you to recognize the mood of America in 1909 and how that relates to today. And tell me if it sounds vaguely familiar. This was printed in the newspaper and an accounting of what Theodore Roosevelt had to say. English as the sole language for schools, newspapers, and other usage in this country was urged by Theodore Roosevelt in an address here tonight under the direction of the National Security League. The effort to keep our citizenship divided against itself, the colonel continued, by the use of the hyphen and along the lines of national origin, is certain to breed a spirit of bitterness and prejudice and dislike between great bodies of our citizens. If some citizens band together as German Americans or Irish Americans, then after a while others are certain to band together as English Americans or Scandinavian Americans, and it goes on. Using the motto, America for Americans, for all Americans, whether they're born here or abroad, the former president declared that the salvation of our people lies in having a nationalized and unified America. So when Steve Bannon, I'm bringing it home now, chief advisor to President-elect Trump, has the dirty nerve to say that he's not a white nationalist, but a nationalist. Does it make sense now? When they talk about we're going to take our country back, does that tell you to whom and to when? He's telling you they're using the same language. They're worried about making America great again. They're worried about having a singular language. They're offended if we talk to each other in any language other than English. They are offended if we call ourselves African American. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. I'm not going to preach all night long. I'm just going to leave you with this. As I told you, or at least the brothers who are in here, as I told you before when I was speaking at the district meeting, we are the bros. Pledged so hard till the day I die. If there was one thing that I want to do is be a badass cute, just like you. Don't want no A-Phi-A, because I can't go that way. Don't want no K-A-Psi, because I don't respect that Phi Du Pi. Don't want no Phi BZ, alias Rodney Dangerfield fraternity. I tell you, Sigmas get no respect, no respect, no respect. I'm an Omega man, baddest frat in the whole damn land. If there's anything that I ever wanted to do was be a badass cute, just like you. I can sing, I can dance, I can do most anything. Omega is all we need. The founders put it in place. They were living in a time arguably much more violent than we are now, arguably, but not much different than we are living in now. And as we, as Omega men, want to live and exist in the vision that was set forth by the founders, then we have to take ownership of how we represent ourselves publicly, not be so stingy with the greatness of our history. And we have to let folks know that we are Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We don't need any help with another organization as it relates to whether Black Lives Matter. We don't need another organization to help us find safe spaces on our college campuses. All we need to do is be the Omega men that our founders would have us to be. God bless you, God bless the Qs, and long live Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.